Hello, and welcome to Guys Dealing with Feelings, a podcast focused on men's health and emotional awareness. Jason, a licensed therapist with over 18 years of experience, going up on 19 years, and I, being profoundly affected by the death of my son, share grounded conversations and practical insights to help men navigate modern life with clarity and intention. What's going on, Jay?
Yo, morning.
So today we're going to try and tackle, and I don't even know the right verbiage here, but creating a life you don't want or need, whatever the appropriate word is to escape from. And I think this is what the entire podcast is really about: is creating a life that we enjoy, love, it's worth fighting for. I don't know, fill in whatever you want to here. Another way to look at it is from the half glass empty. You don't want to be miserable. You don't want to feel like shit. You don't want to be unhappy. So either way you look at it, we're trying to create through a lot of different angles. I'm sure if you listen regularly, you hear a lot of the same message, and it's because it is the same message. It just has to be applied in every aspect of our lives every time we make a decision. And Jason and I try to be open and honest. We are not immune from making mistakes in this constant decision making. We do things that cause us to steer away from the things it is that we talk about. But that is why we try to attack it from so many different angles, and why we still end up coming back to the core thing, which is making sure that we're staying inside ourselves, focusing on self and not outside of self, etc. So this is another way we're going to, kind of attack that, because it is, so much we dream about getting away or finding a new job, moving to a different city, retiring, finally have enough money, and everything's going to feel different. But when we get there, we often have the same mind problems, the fears, the habits, all that shit comes with us. So it's along what we talk about. Everything is us. We are our experience, and so we are going to go wherever we go. And so we're gonna. And I don't want to. Something I do want to say here, and of course Jason will jump in, but sometimes a change is necessary. Sometimes a change of scenery is necessary. Sometimes a change of friend groups is necessary. Relationship changes. I've definitely had those. I've definitely made those happen, and they've needed to happen. They've come. The results show are proof positive that it was a correct decision to make. So we're not suggesting that you don't have to change where you live, the city you live in. The notion is just changing that is not going to change how you feel. Is not going to change the mind racing stuff, the in your head all the time, the suffering from the past, the worrying about all that shit's going to go with you. So I don't want it to be heard that, well, I don't need to change anything just right here, because if you stay in the same circumstance, it's not a good circumstance. It could prevent growth from occurring. It really could stifle growth from occurring. I know in my life that's happened. I've had relationships where, it just, we fed off the energy, the negative energy fed off of itself, off of each other. And it just didn't, it doesn't lead for fruitful uh,
Wasn't
growth.
sustainable.
Yeah, it's not sustainable. So all that, and escape's not even going to be always physical. So if constantly scrolling, drinking alcohol, using drugs, overworking, staying constantly busy, shopping, gambling, pornography, video games, endless TV, relationships, all these used as distractions, and even productivity, which I don't go too far down that, but some productivity, if you're just focused on just this, that, it's going to be avoidance of the true issue, which is self. So it's not what are we trying to escape to, but what are we trying to get away from is really what we're asking. And I don't know. I'll open the forum up to Jason to kind of see where he's coming from on this. I know. I'm sure there was a time in your life when you did need to get away from, change some scenery and stuff like that. I know I did. I left town when I was 18 and didn't come back till I was 25. I probably could have left town again, but I've been able to figure some shit out. So, so you know what I'm saying, and you understand the kind of the line I'm trying to walk.
Yeah. Yeah. So, man, ultimately, it comes down to so it relates to the most existential, philosophical, mind bending, soul tweaking question that we don't tend to get to. All right. So when I refer to life, I'm referring to in here. So our experience of this life is not actually in experiencing a world in the way we imagine. We're actually experiencing a body through the senses. Do you understand? Through what we see and hear and taste and can touch. But we also know or have been told that the world is not what it appears to be, right? Because we've been told about atoms and all this weird, you know what I'm trying to say? That space and all, Uh, so the world is quite a bit different than the way our system allows us to experience it. So our bodies are like limiters, you know? It limits the information that's coming into our system. You know what I'm trying to say?
Yep.
Like I'm not seeing X-ray and ultraviolet light, and I'm not hearing what dogs hear. You know what I mean? But that shit's happening, you know. So at a certain point in time, I would have referred to life as the things happening out here. I wouldn't have known that life is actually what's going on in here, thoughts, feelings, and sensations. But because my experience was only connected to thought, I was very confused as to what's going on.
So it in and of itself is confusing, as I think, especially when somebody hears it for the first time. And I there's two things that came to my mind when you were talking about it. One being all the things that we've come up with to enhance our capabilities as humans. Think about a microscope or
It extends our senses.
it extends our senses. That's right.
Science, what we call science, is the extension of our senses, searching around in this thing we call matter, trying to figure something out.
Yeah.
We're
And then
trying to find something.
the other part is uh, our experience, because we're walking around on this planet, but the way that we experience all of it, all of it is through the senses that you referred to.
Right. But most of what we're connected to is the dimension of thought.
And then for whatever reason, which we've discussed quite a bit, I'm not just dismissing that there's not reasons, but so if we've gotten from there to we're just thinking all the time, trying to make these connections and then joining, I guess, making ourselves one with the body. I don't know, um, how far we would go, but we are experiencing everything we experience is through this lens that is the body, and the senses that come with it, and the emotions that drive that, and the experiences that drive those emotions, and beliefs. All that changes how we experience it, and that was a dumbfounding. I know I've said it before how dumbfounding that was for me to figure out
Yeah.
that when Jason and I sit next to each other in the exact same room, we're not having the exact same experience. We could have very similar ones. Jason and I specifically could have some very similar ones just because we share some history. Uh, but um, if you don't know somebody and you've never met them in your life, say you're sitting in an airport lounge, you're not having the same experience as the person next to you. They may know that they're sitting in a chair in an airport. That part may be the same. And that's really hard to wrap your mind around. But
Yeah.
with the same thought process in mind, trying to find anything of value or substance or whatever outside the body, I think is what Jason was getting towards for us is exercise in futility, because you're only going to experience the external via the internal. So you can draw lines in wherever you want in this, that stands true. So if we are just a bunch of chemicals and shit in this body and we lay down forever and that's it, that's fine. You can draw your line there, but you can't say that we're not experiencing life based on the reactions that our body have to circumstances presented to us. And in that, we can understand that the focus cannot be on fixing something on the outside. Not that those aren't. So a lot of our suffering on the outside, again, to your point, is issues we have internally.
It's how we relate to what's yeah.
But that could have got us in situations we don't want to be in any longer. And when we resolve those things, we can see, well, shit, I need to change. I get, I don't know, this is a bad example, but if you're drunk and you make a decision, when you wake up the next day and you're sober, you think, oh, that wasn't a good decision.
Yeah.
Now, you may be forced
You're
to
more
live with it,
clear.
but yeah, you're more clear. You may be forced to live with some of um, the results of the night before, but you don't have to continue to repeat the night before. And the same is true for when we find ourselves and we find peace. A friend said to me the other day that I just want peace. And I think that's a key indicator that you've reached a point that of, where you and I reached a rock bottom. This is a point where you're not really going through anything dramatic. You're just like, I'm not fucking dealing with this anymore. I'm too old. You hear it a lot. I'm too old for this shit. And it's just, I'm too old to put up with this dumb shit that's chaos that does nothing but distract from my peace of mind and stability and calm. And all of that comes from, I think, how we live our lives every day, like what decisions we make, how we feel. All of those things are a direct result of what we spend our time and energy up until that point paying
Yeah.
attention to. And
Investing in, yeah.
Jason's point is we've spent all of our time investing in our thoughts. And,
Yes, actually.
and so then we think that's where the answers are. And
Yeah.
so we go back to
We've
it,
been
but that's
taught to
just,
do that.
yeah, that's just yeah.
Yeah. So, it's really here's how I would describe it. It's actually about our evolving into a conscious co-creation in a way is maybe a better way to say it, right? So, the reality is everybody's in there. I don't know, you're in there, I'm in here, however you wanna sway it, okay. Well, what's going on in there? You know? What's it feel like? And for most of us, it's full of thoughts, past, future. So in here's full. It's full. There's no space, you know? And so the way I relate to this life is that, okay, well, I sort of relate to being like a cosmic astronaut, and I'm learning how this system operates and how the way that the nervous system is operating dictates the way I relate to myself and other people and the world, right? Meaning, so for instance, if I'm in a agitated state, uh, sympathetically activated, fearful state, well, that literally changes the nature of thoughts that are present. It changes my perception of the world and the environment. You see what I mean? It actually changes the way the entire body's operating hormonally, right? Everything starts to change, and then that starts to again affect perception. Does that make sense? How I'm saying that?
Hmm.
Okay. Now, I didn't make the world. I don't. So it's there now. I don't understand the relationship of my nervous system and the world. And so the only thing I have available to me is to learn how this system operates, learn about what's happening, this interiority, right? Because the way it seems to work is when I begin to focus on that, that starts to change the shape of the world. And I mean, I didn't make the world, so I didn't make like colors and lights and sounds and atom. I didn't make it. So I didn't create that. I don't know how to do that. But I do know now what thoughts are and what the difference between a thought and a feeling is, which come to find out is not straightforward at all.
That's a pretty convoluted thing.
It's paradoxical
Yeah. Um, and
because
then
it
you've got
uses my voice.
you've got, so the way the nerves, you brought up the nervous system and the way that it remembers even what we're blocking out mentally is going to dictate things, and it can make trauma can make chaos feel normal and calm feel uncomfortable. And that's some we've talked often about discomfort is what derails us. And when I say us, that's all us inside of us. So we get agitated, we feel uncomfortable, shit kicks in to say, well, let's stop this. Why are we go? What's going on? We need to fix
which
whatever
is
situation,
natural.
and it'll derail us into a comfortable space. And this comfortable space could have been created from a traumatized nervous system, which we've said repeatedly that we all are walking around with. It doesn't have to be something as severe as what I experienced or going through any bad things like you would name it. That person's been traumatized. That is, you have
It's
to.
just coming into the birth canal. That's it's traumatizing to feel separate from the universe, feel like a separate character, isolated from the universe or God or whatever word's comfortable. That's in and of itself traumatic by its very nature. So but
So,
now if I was to say, and it is something I say regularly, that the flow of our nervous system includes thoughts, feelings, and sensations. When I say that thoughts are a part of the flow of the nervous system, that is just a very foreign concept to our ears, generally, because we relate to thought as us. So to understand it as just energy and movement, that is again a very foreign concept to us. You know, even though if we really sit with it, we might be able to recognize that when states change, the nature of thought changes. In a more relaxed state, the thoughts are more generous and open and curious and, forgiving. But
that should be relatable.
in an agitated state, they're not. They're judgmental and critical and hateful.
Yeah, I think everybody's had that experience.
Yeah. That comes the so thoughts more accurately would be described as coming from the gut, not from the brain in the way that we relate to it.
Which
We literally relate to thoughts as being produced by the brain.
we do. And I know how
Yeah.
that derails us, but it really doesn't matter where they're coming from. We need to understand that they're just a piece.
Well, if you understand that they're coming from the body, then in an agitated state where thoughts taking up all the frame, then you understand what it's about is returning the attention to the body to relax what's happening in the body, and the mind will follow. It's like returning thoughts back to the body is a way of relating.
Yeah. And that
That's
simple
foreign as hell to
statement
us,
you just said is foreign to most
as
of us.
hell.
Yeah.
Thoughts being a part of the flow of my nervous system. It's like,
Well,
what
you
are
just feel
you?
like thoughts are where the answers are.
You got
How
it.
in the hell am I going to find an answer if I'm not thinking? And
That's your
it's just so
in feeling
foreign.
and intuition in the gut where truth is, you know? And it's really, at the core of it, which is what we're doing and what my whole life is about now, because it's information that's been freely given to me by I don't, we're really in a need of a radical re-education, right? Um, if we knew that thoughts were actually a part of the flow of the nervous system as a culture, uh, as a group, we would teach that shit. We don't know that as a whole. There's just some of us that are kind of shown that a little earlier than
Well, it's been used as a form of manipulation for throughout
what.
to keep people thinking.
Yeah, 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 yeah. In the
Yeah,
head,
then which
out
you
of the
say in the
body,
head,
out of
quote unquote.
feeling, out of
Yeah,
into, yeah, yeah,
quote unquote in the
yeah,
head. And
yeah.
that's that confusion part makes it very difficult for us to, especially men. You do the research. A man just wants a logical explanation to understand why it is the way it is, and that helps kind of wrap our minds around it. And that's really helped me throughout this process. Is kind of you know Jason piecing some of the stuff together that it's all this. It's all it's all this lens, and Tom Bilyeu will say that you're just having a chemical reaction. So when you have an emotion, you're just having a chemical reaction. It's a reaction within our bodies, and if we can see it that way,
Yeah. Now,
and
I would disagree with the simplification. I understand what
yeah,
but we're not walking brains, you know? There will be a way in which likely that character relates to things that way. Maybe, I don't but to, like, sort of describe it as it's just a chemical no, 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 no. That's a dimension of what's happening. There's a chemical dimension that's what's happening, and then there's another dimension, you could call it, it's referred to a lot of different ways, right? The subtle body, the energy body, there are different ways that it's referred to, but, uh, that chemical dimension, is reflected in a variety of dimensions, you know? So, it's reflected in thought. You know what I'm trying to say? So then, yeah, a body that's full of cortisol and adrenaline will be producing particular kinds of thoughts.
and feelings.
Yeah, agitated,
Yeah,
tense.
and that's I think the idea behind the statement is that it's we think it's a thinking thing. We think that it's a
Yeah,
I've been violated and so I feel this way, or I've been wronged and so I feel this way, or I must get vindication or I will continue to feel this way. Excuse me. That's what we think is happening, but it's not. It's just a reaction. It's a reaction of a bunch of shit that is not part of the movie reel. All that's part of the movie reel is the thinking part, and it's we've told ourselves that we're going to think our way out of it. Um, and to bring it back to some things that we can use immediately to pay attention, because a lot of times it's like, well, okay, I get it, but where do I even start? And some of the fundamentals to starting or to nurturing a peaceful surrounding that promotes self and inward thinking versus outward thinking, sleep, exercise, nutrition, nature, friendship, gratitude, financial discipline, saying no, and time alone to create stability, because our stability is going to create our freedom, and the freedom being peace. And it's and with age, I don't know if it's the mortality part of it or what, but we just know things become more important the closer to the end of the ride we get. And I think for so long we're all just trying to survive,
yeah,
and it's get to
yeah,
Friday, get to payday, or if I can just get to retirement, or if I can make it to this summer vacation, or um, but in reality, we want to get up on Tuesday morning or Tuesday afternoon and just have a great day, because it's great to be here. It's great to be alive. It's great to be experiencing this chaotic place where we are in this body that we don't fucking understand.
yeah. Right,
And
right, right.
let's just enjoy the ride, like when because
Well, that's the idea.
you're out of control on an amusement park ride. You
Yeah,
have this
yeah,
false sense of security that you've got these guardrails that are prevent death, but we all know that we watch the news and we see deaths on them. So they are, and it's the same thing. We're just, it seems more in control because it's not moving at 150
yeah.
miles an hour.
Watch. Let me see if I had this image right. Um, yeah. So in other parts of the world, this whole experience could be referred to as Leela, which means a dance. Actually means a dance of light and sound at the deepest level. Um, so the way I relate to our typical approach could end up having us in a corner and with an attempt to completely remove everything in our life that's agitating to us, right? That's our typical orientation. We try to rearrange the deck of the Titanic, you know? You know what I'm trying to say? And then that just shrinks our life. Um, And so a lot of times, so like people will come and we having conversations, and let's say somebody's describing their irritation towards their mother, and they're talking about setting boundaries, and I got to set boundaries, and da 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 da. You know, it a lot of times it can be a little jarring for people when I start to make the suggestion to them to investigate a little bit more why they're so bothered. Like, why is what they're doing bother you so much? It can be pretty jarring because most of the time we've never really explored that in depth. And our lived experience feels like we're just thrown around like a leaf in the wind, right? And just agitated by everything. And so I help people understand why you're agitated, why you're taking it personal, why you don't understand why your mother does the things she does. It's because you don't understand why you do what you do. And so that's my approach. It's not to shrink our life, it's to understand the influence of fear and how that has pervaded every aspect of our lived experience in ways that we don't have. It's just uh, very unfamiliar to us. That's a radical understatement. Uh, 'Cause, yeah, we have a tendency to try to avoid, and I'm not saying that there's not, situations where listen, man, I can completely understand why somebody does what they do, why they're throwing their arms around and flailing around in life, and I can have compassion for it, but I don't gotta be around it,
That's right.
you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think you're kind of dancing the dance I was trying to dance at the beginning, where you can definitely paint yourself into a really small, tight corner, a bedroom, whatever, and can have a lot of control over your
The
surroundings.
appearance of control, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
But you're
You
trying to
think
control how you feel.
right, and so you
That's
buffer
what the whole
yourself.
effort is, yeah.
So
I go
you
to
put yourself in
Walmart at
this
2 o'clock in the morning now because I can't be around people.
right. And that's an extreme case, but that does not mean that the other extreme that you have to be surrounded by people who make your life miserable. That is not, there is definitely a comfortable medium. And, I think to get to the bottom of where you are personally in your life, asking questions like what's draining me on a weekly or even daily basis, what's giving me energy, what makes me feel good if I go through this experience, and what relationships leave me exhausted, what happens, what habits make tomorrow harder, what would I stop doing if I had more respect for myself or would stand up for myself. These type questions, while answering them is not going to do shit for you other than to identify some areas that should probably be explored and what role you play in that. And if going on a walk in the morning at the park gives you energy, but hanging out with a friend playing a video game makes you tired and makes you not want to do shit, then do more of the walking in the nature part and less of the friend video game playing part, and see if you don't can start to see some other growth occur. What this is all about is fostering that which encourages the growth and being around others who are fostering and encouraging growth. They can't grow for you, but you can put a really healthy plant in sand and not water it, and it'll fucking die. The same is true with us. You can take a beautiful human being and put them in a very broken situation, and it will fucking break them. And it's not because they don't want to. That again, not to the extreme that you got to go to Walmart at 2 a.m., but you do not have to stay involved in toxic shit. You don't have to stay involved in places or situations that you may have put yourself in a time when you didn't care as much about yourself as you do now. Those things you need to change. You need to identify them. But there's a lot of work between I'm sitting here and I'm mad. Maybe I just need to move from Nashville to New York City.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
And then I get to New York City and I'm sitting there and I'm fucking mad.
Yeah, it comes down to inside, then outside. That's what it comes down to.
And I think
Inside
instead of
first.
and learning that and focusing on that and putting the work in there instead of daydreaming about being in Hawaii or whatever the fuck it is you think of where it's going to get you
Right,
away from where you are.
right. And let me refer. So one of the ways that we will typically relate to meditation, for instance, okay? And I honestly, at this point in time, in my experience, I don't use that word that often with people. It has too much baggage and it's too misunderstood. So we'll relate to it often as a form of, well, one is like a coping strategy and just a very, uh, very like small, sort of limited way. But we'll often relate to it as a relaxation technique, right? And but that's conceptual. I don't Doesn't make a whole lot of sense. So, but really, what it is at its core is an education. You understand? Like it's really about learning what it means to close your eyes and pay attention and learn. But we don't really relate to it that way. It just so happens too that when we do on a consistent basis regularly sit down and give our nervous system the space it needs to let go is actually how it works. Is that when we give our nervous system attention on a regular basis, that naturally starts to affect our neurophysiology in a profound way. It starts to naturally reconnect the left hemisphere, the right hemisphere of the brains to reconnect the prefrontal cortex, the limbic system. It starts to rebalance the nervous system, which would then start to affect our hormone production and if it starts to affect us on a cellular level. Because what we're actually doing is sitting down and closing our eyes and learning what it means to pay more attention to feeling over thinking. And when we go through life and all our attention is on the thinking dimension, it automatically means we're suffering immensely because we're not here. We're not able to be here. And actually, because we only relate to life at the level of thought, we relate to life through a very conditioned lens, through our past, right? And, what we've been taught. And so it's just a very limited way of relating to what's going on. It's like having a arm tied behind your back, you know? There's a whole dimension that is just not being experienced. And the intelligence of that dimension is absent from our lived experience, you know?
Yeah, it's you see the mountains in the distance and you know you were trying to get to the mountains, but you navigate your immediate interstate drive by looking off at the mountains.
Yeah,
You're just not going to ever make it to the mountains.
yeah. You're gonna
You're
wreck.
looking at the wrong fucking thing. You're going to
You're
wreck
gonna
because
crash.
you're not paying attention to what's happening right in front of you.
That's
You're
it.
paying
So
attention
you
to the
gonna
mountains out.
crash.
Yeah, so you're going to crash. And if you can look at life the same way, why am I looking off into
In here. Yeah.
yeah, why am I off in the future? Why am I not right here? I got to be right here to navigate what's right here. Now, that is not that analogy can get twisted and turned into the wrong fucking thing. But what I'm trying to say is focusing on the now versus the past or the future, which is really the same. And that will allow you to navigate where it is that you stand and get you to the future that you're trying to get to, not one that you're afraid of. If you're staring at something you're afraid of, you're most likely going to hit it. That's how it works. There's been many studies about the people who, how the hell did they run into a telephone pole? It was the only one within 500 yards. And it was because they were thinking, oh shit, I don't want to hit that telephone pole. So the body's like, all right, we're staring at the telephone pole. Let's hit it. And so that's what they hit. So in conclusion, vacations, entertainment, all that's good, all that's fine, but it should be adding to the life we already love, not trying to provide temporary relief from the life we can't stand. Building a life around values instead of distractions, focusing on self instead of focusing on the external. You can't just build a meaningful life. You can't wake up and say, it's going to be true. It is work. You build it one conversation, one habit, one boundary, one choice, one ordinary day at a time, simply focusing on self, not the mountains, but the interstate. And the best life isn't one that you spend trying to escape. It's one that you're grateful to wake up to every morning. If you enjoy this podcast, please like, follow, and share wherever you're listening or watching. Doing so helps us reach more men who can be positively impacted by this material. You can find us on Spotify, YouTube, and Apple Podcast. Also on the socials under Guys Dealings with Feelings. As Always, we thank you for giving us your time, your most valuable asset. And until next time, stay in the fight. This world is a much better place with you in it.